Well, the Supreme Court reared its ugly head yesterday. Uh, Georgia instituted its 6-week abortion ban. Ron DeSantis wants to jail people for running ads about the abortion initiative that's on the ballot in Florida. Let's see what else is going on. Donald Trump has dug deep and brought out his inner eugenicist. We are 28 days out from the most consequential election in what seems like human history. And I don't know, guys. I'm really tired. Let's dive in. Okay. Hello, Randy Rainbow. Thanks for joining us today. I actually, just in case anybody's as confused as I am, I clearly played the wrong intro because I'm producing the show today. You'll never guess that I probably should not quit my day job. So we miss Mercedes, but she is on a well-deserved vacation. Brian, what is a vacation? I do not know.
I don't know. I'm waiting for one myself. I can't wait till the end of this election cycle. I need a time off.
Are you promising me that this election is going to end?
One can only hope.
One can only hope. Yeah, it's just another dull week in America. So I don't know. What any new hobbies?
Well, I'm collecting glasses these days. I got the Randy Rainbow.
I have those too.
Yeah, I know. And then of course these and for you, Mary, always.
Yeah, you just do that to torment me. You said you were going to get me one of those, and it has not yet materialized.
I do have one for you sitting right there in the next time.
All right. Okay, to much less pressing matters. We are sorry, I shouldn't be laughing. It sometimes feels like we are living in the end times. We have barreling towards the Gulf Coast of Florida, specifically Tampa, what is being called the worst storm to hit that area in a century, after we just had a once-in-a-generation storm hitting 4 southern states and just bringing absolute carnage.
Yeah.
To certain areas, particularly Western North Carolina. In the meantime, in order to be the helper he is, Donald Trump is spreading misinformation and actually with him, it's always disinformation about the Biden-Harris administration's response, which according to even to Republican governors has been exemplary. We're hearing reports that there have been anti-Semitic attacks on government officials and people involved in the disaster relief efforts being spread on Twitter.
Yes.
And I mean,
and how can you forget this? Marjorie Taylor Greene, by the way, some of the very same people who don't believe in science, right? Don't believe in the science of COVID, believe that the Democrats are scientifically responsible for steering the hurricane into red state areas. So
yeah, because that's the thing that happens. I actually made a video about this yesterday. If you guys want to check it out, it's on the channel, about how it's actually climate change denying Republicans who are manipulating the weather by doing nothing about climate change. So these storms continue to worsen. By the way, dozens of Republicans voted against FEMA funding, I think a week ago.
Yes.
So they want to make things worse and make it harder to respond to the devastation that's being visited upon people in vulnerable areas. So I just want to talk a little bit about Milton so people have a sense of what we might be looking at. And, obviously there's always a chance either that it will lose steam, although considering the Gulf of Mexico is now probably like 95 degrees, I probably not. There's also a chance that Donald Trump will come along with his Sharpie and change the course of the hurricane, which would be great if he would do that, because magical thinking is one of his specialties. But
or toss toilet paper at them.
yeah, after the fact, obviously,
After the
because he's
fact.
not going to be down there. He canceled Florida appearances. Hang on, I think there he
He
is.
canceled 60 Minutes as well.
I
Hey,
know.
Norm.
Hey, Brian. Hey, Mary.
We're talking about Hurricane Milton because as if the South hasn't suffered enough. I mean, it was you would think that after Donald moved down there that they would have gotten a break, but nope. We have Hurricane Milton, and we're just talking about it's really Republicans who are manipulating the weather, so to speak, by not taking climate change seriously, by doing nothing so that storms get worse. So Milton is relatively small, but because of the extremely warm waters in the Gulf, it's explosively intensifying. All right,
Yeah,
what does that mean? So
it's
rapid intensification. That was a rhetorical question. I'm going to tell you. Rapid intensification of a hurricane means that it increases by approximately 35 miles an hour in terms of velocity every day. Milton has doubled that. Okay. So that seems bad. And we've already recorded sustained winds of 180 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That sounds really bad, Brian.
Well, look, I've covered hurricanes since 83, and I've covered one Cat 5. This is when you say it's small in this size,
area.
It's in area, surface area, but it's compact, and it's probably going to get larger as it gets closer to Florida and covering these things. That's usually how it happens. You'll have a decrease in the wind, but that doesn't happen because of anything other than the fact that it hits landfall and the energy that it needs to create and sustain the winds dies down when it hits land. It doesn't have the warm waters. So that's what contributes to that. But I have never, in all the hurricanes I've ever covered, had FEMA or a mayor come out and say, get out or die, which is
I'm going to play, Brian, I want to play that clip because I think it's so...
It's frightening in its scope. And before you go to that clip, Mary, just want to say that the biggest problem that you have right now is that Republicans are contributing to the horror and the potential damage by telling people that FEMA is armed and limiting and that you can't get help, and it's all bullshit. And it's
and also that the Jews are controlling all of it. That's really awesome. Hey, Waj. So let me play this clip, and then I want to talk about the vile anti-Semitism behind a lot of these attacks, the politicization of natural disasters that the Republicans are making worse due to their policy inaction, et cetera, et cetera. But this should strike some fear into you. Check this out.
The number one message, as it has been for several days now, is that you need to prepare, do whatever you need to do, and then get out of the evacuation zones, which now are evacuation zone A and B. And as we all have heard so many times now, you hide from the wind and run from the water. And we are talking about right now the possibility of a direct hit with 10 to 12 foot tidal surge. Put that in perspective, Hurricane Helene, which just left the Tampa Bay area a week ago, there was 6 foot storm surge, and that was literally devastating to so many in our coastal area. We have 126 miles of coast just in the city of Tampa. And so people need to be heeding that warning. And from the looks of traffic on all of our northbound highways, they're doing just that.
Yeah, we've seen how jammed up those highways are. I know a lot of the tolls have been suspended to help facilitate people getting out of there. What would you say to people tonight who are saying, you know what, I'm going to ride this out, I've ridden others out. What would you say to people who aren't heeding those evacuation orders?
Well, I can tell you right now that they may have done that in others. There's never been one like this. And this Helene was a wake-up call This is literally catastrophic. And I can say without any dramatization whatsoever, if you choose to stay in one of those evacuation areas, you're going to die.
That is,
Oh my God.
look, Hurricane Alicia was a category 3. I covered that in 83 or 84. And everyone, Hugo, all of them that I've covered since then, no one, and there have been a Cat 5s and large Cat 4s. I've never heard that before. And it's frightening because, of course, climate change is contributing to the cause because it's warming the waters. To have this strong a hurricane this late in the season is odd enough as it is. This strengthened to a Cat 5 quicker than any storm except maybe one or two others in history. And it is even higher than that. This is nothing to mess around with. And yet they're politicizing it. To me, the most angering portion of this, Mary, is the fact that you are now divisive about very essential of what is going on. And this is what the government does best. And by the way, Project 2025 wants to limit funds to NOAH and get rid of the National Weather Service so you wouldn't even get these warnings should this come out. This should be a wake-up call to everyone that if you care about government at all, if you care about democracy at all, this has real ramifications. And you've got a moron like Donald Trump screaming disinformation about what's been going on and how the help has been, claiming that the help isn't there when it is. This is the type of stuff. And I feel for those people who live there because there are going to be people die who are buying Donald Trump's bullshit. And that is just horrifying to me. Sorry.
Let me make a few points. Almost exactly 6 years ago, I wrote a piece in the Washington Post after Hurricane Michael, a Category 5, the first one on the west coast of Florida, went up the Panhandle. It was 2.5 weeks before the election, the midterm election in 2018. It barely missed Pensacola and basically hit a few small towns and rural areas. They had just enough time, because it was sparsely populated, to be ready for the election. It was a very close election. Both Rick Scott and Ron DeSantis won by narrow margins. If that hurricane had hit Pensacola, they would not have been able to recover, and we would not have had to deal with Rick Scott or even worse, Ron DeSantis. And what we're seeing now is, and part of my point in that piece was, we have a constitutional crisis that we are not capable of dealing with. But it was that the next one could be even closer to the election. When Helene hit, which, by the way, my wife and sister-in-law have little places in Longboat Key that were completely destroyed. This was the first time in 40 years that Longboat Key, which is near Sarasota, had been hit. They dodged the bullets many times. I said to her, there'll be another one. And we didn't expect it this soon. The hurricane season now extends into November.
Yep.
I would bet you that the odds are significantly greater than even that Milton will not be the last one before the election. And It could have a profound effect on the election. And it actually, if it went up the central part of Florida, could cost Trump and Scott and some others the election. Now, we should also note we should also note that a half dozen House members from Republicans from Florida voted against aid to against FEMA money.
Yep.
And then went out and complained. The worst and most cringeworthy is Anna, whatever her name is, Luna, who I often refer to as Lunatic, who was up doing a campaign event in North Carolina with Trump and not back in her district when the devastation occurred, and since has been complaining that they need FEMA money and where were the feds. So the lies go on and on. And then just a final point, which is not just Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, the insurers are all going to pull out. They will not stay, but it's not just the coastal areas. I've seen a lot of people commenting who live in areas that are not usually hit by hurricanes, who are suddenly being told that their house insurance rates are tripling, quadrupling, quintupling, or that they're losing them because the insurers are pulling out. So we're going to see OBGYNs, emergency room doctors and nurses leaving these states. I can add Texas to the mix as well. And the insurance companies going. These states are going to become hellscapes, and they keep re-electing the monsters who did everything they could to get us into this mess.
Yeah, and let's be very clear. This is nothing new. The Republicans, for a long time now, have been playing politics with disaster relief funds. If you remember Hurricane Sandy,
Yes.
I lived on Long Island at the time, and to his credit, Governor Christie of New Jersey, a Republican. Well, I mean, not to his credit. Of course, he needed the money. So, but he made common cause with President Obama, and the Republicans like turned on him. Like, how dare you? It's like these things used to bring us together. So this predates Donald Trump's supreme ability to divide people. So, as Norm said, it's the Republicans who are denying the extra funding, and then creating this situation in which things are going to be worse. And if we, Brian mentioned this earlier, if we want a government who's just going to let us keep dying and having our property destroyed, this is a direct quote from Project 2025. The climate change alarm industry should be downsized, while much of its climate change research should be disbanded. And that's what's going to happen if they get rid of NOAA, which I think should be pronounced NOAA, and the National Weather Service. So, Danielle, I want to play a clip for you because I think this to me seems perhaps like a tipping point when you have Fox News fact-checking Donald Trump in real time.
For immediate needs.
For the worst, but for the worst hurricane that anybody's seen. But she shouldn't be there anyway. She should be, I would say, North Carolina is bad, is so bad. And
she was there today for 3 hours, I believe.
Oops. And by the way, the front of the beginning of the clip was cut off. He was complaining that $750 isn't enough money to give people. And she's like, well, it's
That's
just for
a lie.
like what they need right now. So maybe that suggests that people understand how dangerous it is, Danielle, to be misleading people at this very, very harrowing time in their lives when they need help and need access to help.
I mean, I will echo what both Brian and Norm laid out as I joined, which is, that these lies are costing people their lives. Right? Like 9 years ago, 8 years ago, everyone wanted to laugh and say, isn't it crazy that Donald Trump is talking about crowd size? Isn't it crazy that he's lying about immigrants? Isn't it crazy that he's doing X, Y, and Z? And now here we are 8 and 9 years later. And not only are they lying about relief aid that is flowing in that had been declared before these storms actually hit these places, but they're also using deep AI fakes in order to spread those lies. There was the clip, the picture of a AI created little girl in a raft with a dog, and Stephen Miller and Laura Loomer and others retweeted that photo and then said that Kamala Harris was sending FEMA money to immigrants as opposed to evacuating American citizens. And when that was told to be a lie, that it was a deep fake, all they did was take it down, but it had already gone out to their tens of millions of followers. And so when we see these moments unfolding where we recognize, and Kamala Harris today was on The View saying that Donald Trump lacks empathy. Like he does not have the ability to have and express empathy for those that are in need. He does not have the capability that we need in leaders in times of disaster. And these things keep coming. I mean, the fact that in 2 weeks, we have 2 historic storms that hit the same goddamn state is is absolutely incredible. The fact that you had a meteorologist, John Morales, crying on air as he's trying to desperately explain to people what is happening and that this has never happened before in his 20 some odd year career, that a storm goes from a tropical depression to a category 5 hurricane. And by the way,
Overnight.
Overnight. I'm sorry. And the categories at this point don't even matter because the rain and the wind that is coming in, like if it's a category 3 or a category 5, is costing people their homes and their livelihoods. And Donald Trump and the MAGA Republican Party do not give a damn. And it's it is extraordinary.
Well, their only care is to make money off of it, scare you, and get reelected.
But this is the thing. I mean, I this has been blowing my mind for a very long time, but it's really come into focus when we see people like Elon Musk doing his level best to help destroy American democracy. It's like having money confers such power upon you, and it's just the wrong way to go about it, guys, because they'll all be protected in a way that the rest of us won't. And Waj, to add insult to injury, as Danielle mentioned, there's all sorts of disinformation being spread around because that's what Donald Trump does. But I mentioned this earlier, and I just wanted to say that I accidentally played the Emergency Nerds theme because Mercedes is not here today. And I just realized that, you know what, every day is an emergency. So it was accidental, but it's fitting. We've got 28 days. But I don't know if you saw the article in the Times, but there's been anti-Semitic threats against people who are either mayors or members of the disaster relief teams on Twitter being fueled by Elon Musk's algorithm. So it's
everything we've been warning about. It's everything we've been warning about. And, you know, I never took Marjorie Taylor Greene lightly. I remember my first article when I was a columnist at the Daily Beast was about Marjorie Taylor Greene. This was about 3 years ago. And I said that she represents the future of the GOP. And now she's seen as a rhino because she aligned herself with that former speaker who's now ousted, right? So now they've gone even nuttier than Marjorie Taylor Greene. But you have to remember that she was in part censured because she launched death threats against fellow congresswomen, the Muslims, and she promoted anti-Semitic conspiracies about Jewish space lasers, and she dined with she supported Nick Fuentes, the white nationalist and anti-Semite.
She appeared with him.
Appeared with him at his conference, the same person that Donald Trump dined with. He dined with Kanye West, post-anti-Semitism, and Nick Fuentes, and to this day, repeatedly when they're asked to condemn Donald Trump for dining with Nick Fuentes, J.D. Vance and others don't, and repeatedly when they're asked Donald Trump to disavow Nick Fuentes, he doesn't. The Guardian at the time, Hugh Lowell, he worked at the Guardian, I think he moved to NBC. He said, based on his reporting, the reason Donald Trump does not disavow Nick Fuentes, the leading white nationalist and anti-Semite and Holocaust denier in America, is because he knows it will hurt his base.
He'd lose.
Yeah, you go from that to right now with the disinformation, the right-wing attacks, the algorithms, and you're seeing the repetition of Marjorie Taylor Greene's Jewish space lasers, and now they're saying weather controlling technology unleashed by the deep state. Who runs the deep state? Forgive me if this is not common to you. I've spent like 15 years in the deep swamp of right-wing conspiracies, so this is like very common to me. They believe that the Jews, and you always have to say it like the Jews, the Jews are the nerve center of an international cabal using Black people, immigrants, Haitians, LGBTQ, feminists, and Muslims to weaken and replace Western civilization. And the Jews, who are leading the deep state, are now unleashing this technology to create, weather events in red states. Now you might say, Wajad, that sounds batshit crazy, because it is batshit crazy. But this is what people are believing right now in the past 2 weeks, and it is being promoted by the GOP because they realize their base believes it, so they have to stick with it. As you mentioned, I'm glad it was mentioned, Matt Gaetz and other Floridians whose state was hit hardest and is hit hardest by Hurricane Helene last week, and now Milton this week, voted against FEMA. And speaking about the numbers, I mean, I wrote an article about this.
Have done nothing about protecting the people there.
Nothing. And I want to mention this because science matters, folks. I wrote a piece late last night and I just did a little bit of research. Hurricane Milton spiked from a Cat 3 to a Cat 5 in less than a day. It is one of only 7 Atlantic or Gulf hurricanes on record to make such a drastic leap in one day. It's due to climate change and the warming of waters, according to a NOAA. I'll pronounce it the way Mary wants to.
Are you okay? Did you choke on a pretzel? What's happening?
National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration.
Yeah.
We're going to witness Cat 5 and Cat 4s throughout our lifetime. And over the past 40 years, the number of major hurricanes has increased due to climate change. In the Bay Area, folks, where I'm from, yesterday and over the weekend, this were the temperatures in October. 100, 102, 99, 98 in San Francisco. This is not normal. And so while this is happening,
It's the new normal.
it's a new normal. They are willing. I mean, it's why I call it a death cult. These people aren't stupid. Gates isn't stupid. Scott isn't stupid. They know climate change is real. DeSantis, because it is the Faustian bargain of being a Trumper, and now you're beholden to the cult, he scrubbed climate change from Florida state laws in the summer. This is just a couple of months ago. So it's the movie Don't Look Up. It's literally the movie Don't Look Up 3 years later. Don't look up, don't look up, don't look up. It's a meteor. No, it isn't. Just don't look up. And as Republicans are dying and they're willing to kill their Republican, they're literally killing their own base for Trump and MAGA and oil and gas companies. This, the reason why we should care is because I'm not a sociopath. Even if people vote Trump and or MAGA, I don't want people to die. I don't want families to lose their homes. We have to realize we're confronting a new normal, as Brian said. This is the new normal, folks. And you need a comprehensive government effort to combat what is, in my opinion, the new asteroid that's coming. And when one of the two major political parties is promoting Jewish space laser conspiracies, voting against FEMA and killing its own base, what do we do?
Wait a minute, Raj.
Hold on.
I have to go on record here. I put my Jewish space laser in a lockbox for the high holidays. I have nothing to do with the weather that's been happening.
Well,
So I blame the gays then.
Please, baby.
I blame the gays
Okay.
or the
Oh,
immigrants.
totally.
me.
Totally. No,
But they
Danielle,
don't-
weather is our thing, weather is totally our thing. But Norm, I'll need photographic evidence.
Well,
of this
and
because
I don't
I
wanna-
think it was George Soros, actually. But
Yeah.
is George Soros gay? Because that would be perfect.
Ooh.
And I don't want to
I will.
understate, but Waz, you actually understated it. It is the second fastest ever to develop from a Cat
yes,
1 to a
Cat 1 to Cat
5.
5.
And it's one of the highest Cat 5s so far. And folks, as I said, I've been covering these, and it brings goose flesh. I will mess with big weather, but when you have a hurricane this intense and you have people warning you that people are going to die, and you're laughing at it as if it's made up science. By the way, these people who are disagreeing about science and say science isn't a thing, how are we getting their opinions? Oh yes, it's on the internet. Hello,
Brian,
science.
I want to shift gears. I mean, it's a
I'm sorry,
related topic. No, it's a related topic though. We're seeing the same thing with the all-out assault on women's reproductive rights.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
good shift.
yesterday, on its the very first day of its new term, the Supreme Court refused to hear a Biden administration appeal of a Fifth Circuit appeals court ruling that upheld Texas. I can't even believe I'm saying this. That essentially what it said in the simplest possible terms is that when it comes to providing emergency abortion care to women in Texas, Texas state law trumps federal law. Okay, so there we are. In Georgia, the Georgia Supreme Court reinstated the 6-week abortion ban. Let's remember, most women don't even know they're pregnant at 6 weeks. And in Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, I've missed him. I've missed him so much, is actually threatening to imprison employees of television studios that run ads in support of the abortion referendum that's on the ballot in November. And none of the 6-week abortion ban in Georgia is called the Life Act. They hate women. They are, as I think Waj said, a death cult. And all of this is because they reject science. None of these things is based on medical science or meteorological science or anything else. And it's like the Bible. They pick and choose, they decide that, some science, like if it's life-saving cancer treatment, yep, they believe in that. But it's just so myopic. And Brian, it's hard to,
Well,
look, on the one hand, this could play well for the Democrats in advance of the election. However, it should give people some insight into what we're facing.
well,
If we are insane enough to let these people back into power.
What you said nailed it on the head. They reject science that doesn't fit their particular myopic view of life. Now, look, there's, I think it was Carl Sagan who said, if you wiped out all science and all religion today and rebuilt from the very beginning, the religion might change, but the science by God is going to be the same 1,000 years from now. Those are facts. And the people who say that, and what angers me is they go, well, science got it wrong. They changed their mind. That's how you think. That's the idea of thinking. When knowledge supersedes old knowledge, you replace the old knowledge with the better knowledge. We used to think, well, some still do, that the world was flat, and we found out differently. We used to think the earth was the center of the universe. We found out differently. Science advanced, we gained knowledge, and people benefited because of it. Only those who adhere to the religious dogma will not accept science outside. It used to be that the Bible was taken literally, folks, created in 6 days, blah, blah, blah. When science proved otherwise, then it became a metaphor. But when it first came out, science, the people in religious circles, particularly those who adhered to the Bible, thought that was a literal interpretation of what happened when the earth was formed. Only when science proved otherwise did they retreat from that and say, and some still haven't, that it was metaphoric. Folks,
but that's the problem. I mean, a lot of people, thanks to our inability to rein in churches
nonsense.
that lie, that politicize, that etc. Norm, we are actually, a lot of people in this country are coming full circle. They believe that this is a Christian country. For example, we have the school superintendent in Oklahoma. I know partially it's a grift, but partially is just an alarming reminder that the wall between church and state is fast eroding, is spending $3 million of taxpayer money to buy Donald's friggin' Bible to put in every class of their 55. That could buy 55,000 $60 Bibles. I'm pretty sure you can find them cheaper because they have to include the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, as if that has anything to do with the Bible, as if everybody subscribes to the teachings of the Bible. There are only 43,000 teachers in public schools in Oklahoma. So, Norm, it's just this alarming trend. And with the Supreme Court decision or non-decision yesterday, are we finally going to see Democrats taking the Supreme Court reform issue seriously and making sure that Supreme Court reform is on the ballot in November?
One certainly hopes so. And there was a really good piece by a former federal judge, Nancy Gertner, and Steve Vladeck, who is probably the best Supreme Court whisperer that we have, yesterday, saying they don't care anymore about public opinion. A couple of points on this front. One was Donald, speaking of Bibles, soiled himself again yesterday. He appeared with members of the Chabad and ultra-Orthodox community on October 7th and took a High Holidays prayer book and asked if they wanted him to sign it. Honest to God, while he held up a picture of a hostage smiling, and we didn't see the thumbs up, but it was there. But in a larger sense, let me tie these two issues together in a way, Mary. We are going to see the demand and need for federal money from these states, not just directly for disaster relief, but as the insurers leave, they'll have to move to some kind of high-risk pool, and these states won't pay for it. These are welfare states. all of these states in the Southeast, Oklahoma and others, take far more in from the federal government than they put out. And they're going to be trying to drain the blue states, the ones that are paying more in, to cover their own miscreants. At the same time as the doctors and nurses flee because of the aftermath of Dobbs, we will see not just the tragedies involving abortions or miscarriages. I will predict right now that we're going to see sharp increases in cervical cancer, ovarian cancer, and other diseases that hit women because they will not have the doctors to treat them, or those who know something about female anatomy or those issues. They're going to end up going to nurse practitioners or probably doctors and nurses in these Catholic hospitals who will not be willing to treat them. And we're going to see more death. The idea that they have co-opted the term pro-life when they are pro-death is simply disgraceful.
Yeah, Danielle, I blame Democrats a little bit for that because for decades they allowed that terminology to take hold. Like when Democrats would refer to Republicans as pro-life, and as to Democrats as pro-choice, as if that's the opposite. If you think pro-life, what's the opposite of pro-life, right? So I think that it has been part of the problem. However, I think the new trend to just, instead of saying abortion should be legal, rare, and safe, we're in a much better position just in terms of the narrative around abortion. It's healthcare. I don't want to hear anybody else his opinion about it. However, because we have a Supreme Court that has ruled itself to be completely unconstrained by any thought of co-equal branches of government, are completely unbound, not just by Congress or the executive branch, but by the Constitution. We're in really big trouble here.
And I think that to Norm's point, what we should be alarmed by in the public is that our opinions no longer matter. Right? Like that is exactly what the Supreme Court and what the MAGA Republicans have decided, that our opinions, our dismay, our disgust with how the systems are working against us do not matter. The Supreme Court comes back into their term with the same vengeance against women and people with uteruses that they had when they left. It doesn't matter that their polling is in the toilet, because guess what? If I can never be removed from my goddamn job, then I'm going to do it any which way that I want, right? Because I have to be accountable to no one. And so, people have to recognize that, all of this to me, Mary, comes back to education, comes back to a lack of education and being able to weaponize people's ignorance, right? Because if you had a really profound healthcare education, then you would know that abortion is used for a lot of things in order to save the life of a person, right? That there are complications that more likely than not come along with being pregnant, right? And that it is not the stork that delivers the baby to your home all neatly wrapped in a fucking crate and barrel cashmere sweater, right? Like that's not how this stuff happens. It happens through lots of blood and guts and emergency, right? And we have now tied doctors and nurses' hands behind their backs, and instead of being able to save people's lives, they have to worry about whether or not they will be incarcerated afterwards. That's not a choice, right? That is not a choice that people should be forced to be made. I have a friend who gave birth 2 months ago, that had she had the complications that she had delivering her son anywhere other than New York, if she had been in Texas, where she is from, she would have died.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that people need to understand that these people, these MAGA Republicans, not only do they not give a damn, they are the most depraved group of cruel people that we have ever seen. It's worse than the world is flat people, right?
Mhm.
Because their ignorance is one that they have weaponized to get people onto their side to say, like Waj said, you know, don't look up, don't look out, put the earplugs in, cover your eyes, and only ingest what it is that I am saying, which is full and complete lies. It is terrifying where we are right now, 27 days until the election is over.
We
It
live
is-
in a technological Middle Ages.
Yeah,
Where I want the age of enlightenment, for the love of God.
and you know, one question I always ask is like, why is it that people reject all that's best about being human? And it's just
Fear.
like yeah, I know it's fear, but it's also it's so harmful. It's so self-destructive. And Waj, I think based on everything that Danielle and Norm and Brian just said, as hard as it is to imagine, we really do need to start looking beyond and planning past the election. Even though it does feel like a wall of obsidian, I can't even, because the two futures are so diametrically opposite to each other. But you know, we're doing everybody a huge disservice if we pretend that, you know, we only have to do this until November 5th or 6th or 7th or whatever it's going to be.
No, I think it's a very important point you make, and it's a point that Danielle and I made on our show, Democracy-ish, which is on Married Term Media 2 weeks ago, which is there are a lot of folks who are thinking that if Kamala wins, and she has to win, that the nightmare of Donald will go away. And yes, maybe Donald might go away. I think until he dies, he's going to be the head of the GOP. But the entire GOP is corrupt.
Maybe after.
Yeah. And the entirety of the GOP has realized the more cruel, the more vicious, the more misogynist, the more racist, the more conspiratorial, the more anti-Semitic, the more we win, at least locally. The more our base eats it up. And one of the major villains of the 20th and 21st century, one of the greatest architects against democracy, inshallah, if we're lucky enough to be alive and we win and write the history books, will be Rupert Murdoch and right-wing media.
Yep.
The damage that they have done to democracy, both here and abroad, is immeasurable. And so to answer also your last question, you know, so many of our fellow Americans, they're not evil. They don't have horns on their head. I know you know these folks. They're probably in your family. They're your neighbors. They're people. But if 24/7 you're getting a sermon, not just on Sunday from your pastor, but every single hour of every single day from every single outlet, repeating the same hateful messages and conspiracies, what does that do to you as a human being? It changes your entire outlook. You live on Earth 3. We've lost 30% of our population. I've said this again and again for our lifetime. So this election, don't see it as a huge uppercut. Don't see it as a knockout blow. See it as a massive uppercut. And you'll weaken MAGA. But this is a long-term project for our democracy. And I just want people to get that mindset right. This is not going to be a knockout blow. If you're expecting a knockout blow, you're going to be disappointed. You're going to be exasperated. You're going to be depressed. You're like, oh, we defeated Donald again. And we still have the same problems. Yes, this is going to be, we have to chip away at it. We have to chip away, quarantine, if you will, the virus, and let the majority then be inoculated and grow out, I would say, the progressive media ecosystem as the balance to right-wing media, grow out from the grassroots up informed citizens who run for office, local office, state legislatures, House, Senate, get more people of color, more women, more scientists, more doctors running, right? This is going to be a 10 to 15-year project and a 10 to 15-year recovery from the damage that Republicans have inflicted upon us, not just with Trump and Donald the last 10 years, but through Reagan, that's the last 40 years, and also what they've done to our Supreme Court. So just have that mindset, folks. I think that's important. We're in this for the long run, especially if you're my age, you know, in your 40s, you might be exhausted, but I got kids.
Hey, I'm in the 60s and I'm exhausted.
I mean, no, but many of us have kids,
Let's
right?
not
So
go there. Let's not go there.
you all are spry elders. But what the last point I want to make is it's we have to think about our kids and our kids' generation.
Just quickly, spry is a word you only use about old people. So watch, be careful.
Mary, you weren't supposed to say that.
We know.
Right.
No, it's a long-term project that will need long-term cultural, political workers, moms, dads, suburbanites, teachers, pastors. It's a long-term project, folks. It's going to take a multiracial, multicultural coalition, the Nerd Avengers. This is the only way we're going to get it done, because these people aren't going to give up. I've been researching them for 14 years. They're committed. They're zealous. And let me tell you, you can have a majority, but if it's a flabby, moderate majority, they get carved like butter with a right-wing religious zealot minority that wakes up every day and thinks Armageddon's coming and they have to fulfill God's plan because they're on a mission from God. It's like Blues Brothers from hell.
But look, they have been on. This is not new. The Heritage Foundation has been ongoing. They have planted their people in the Supreme Court. That was their first stop. Secondly, you're right. It's been around since Nixon. That was when we first and look. And I'm going to blame the press, even going back to the term pro-life. We adopted that. We shouldn't have adopted that. We should have called it out for what it was when we had the chance. But to your point, Waj, and the thing that you had, here's where you know it's not going to end. Watch that VP debate again and look and see who they want and who is being placed in the middle of the stream to take over for Donald Trump, the one who wants to run it. And that's J.D. Vance. And he did it by presenting a kinder, gentler fascism. And he threw Donald Trump under the bus in at least 2 times. When he said this is a great country, Donald Trump called it a hellscape. He stood diametrically opposed to him. He's the new threat. This is ongoing, and you cannot stop.
I just want to add that he got a big assist in being normalized by other people on that stage. I can't believe I forgot this. But Sheldon Whitehouse dropped a report. Not that we didn't know this, but it just reminds us like how insane it is that there hasn't been Supreme Court reform. The FBI probe of the sexual assault claims against then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh were constrained by the Trump White House. Wonder why. I'm sure it's because there was no there. I had wanted to talk today about a fairly long New York Times piece called Trump's Speeches, that would be Donald, increasingly angry and rambling, reignite the question of age. I think it's a longer conversation because it's not about Donald. It's about the way these issues are approached by corporate media. And I think it's a conversation that deserves more time than we have right now. So I just wanted to bookmark that. And in the meantime, I want to play this and get your last thoughts. And we're going to end a little bit early today. Here we go. Have fun.
Bothering to try to kill Kamala because it's pointless. What do you achieve? Nothing.
No, it's totally
Just find
right.
another puppet.
Exactly. That's
It's no point in killing.
it's deep and true, though.
Nobody's trying to kill Joe Biden.
It's in,
It would be
bless you.
pointless.
Totally.
Okay, I am so tired of hating people. I don't know. Like, I think it takes up. Does the FBI ever, Norm? Should the FBI be paying them a visit, perhaps? Because it's one thing to have Roseanne Barr talking about how Democrats are blood-sucking vampires. This seems a little more problematic.
My immediate reaction to that was the FBI and the Secret Service need to pay this monster a visit. I got a little pushback actually from somebody sort of on the left saying it was a bad joke, but he's on the spectrum. And the idea that excuses anything from Elon Musk almost made me throw up. Before we go, Mary, though, we also have to note something else about Donald, which is in Bob Woodward's new book. And there are two things there that are striking. One is when we had a shortage of COVID tests, when this was just exploding, he secretly sent a huge amount to Vladimir Putin. So people here, I am sure, died. Those who didn't know they had COVID went out and infected others. Those who didn't get tested and got much worse as a consequence, to help his BFF, Vladimir Putin. And the second is that there were at least 7 times after he left office that he had private phone conversations with Putin. How many of those involved the highly classified, top secret, and even more sensitive documents that he stole and brought down to Mar-a-Lago with him? So we've got a lot more there about how he is not only a sociopath or a psychopath or whatever you want to call him, but clearly a traitor to America, willing to sacrifice Americans to promote his relationship with the vicious dictator of Russia. We cannot leave without emphasizing even more how monstrous this man is.
Yeah, and that's why Republicans try to convince people that Russia is not our enemy. I mean, it's just to provide cover. And watch, it's not because Donald's old. I mean, obviously, you know, it only mattered when Biden was old, but the least horrible thing you can say about Donald Trump is that he's old.
Yeah, and I want to just mention, you know, one point. Norm was saying, I know people on the spectrum. I have family members on the spectrum. They're not cruel, vicious racists. You're a cruel, vicious racist if you're cruel, vicious racist.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I'm glad, Norm, you brought up what you just said about Donald. And the last point I want to make, I know we have to leave, is Bob Woodward had this information. He was sitting on it.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Can't even.
Just that's all I want to say.
Yeah, well,
You know,
that's
Don't
happened.
get me started on that boob.
But
go
Brian,
ahead,
that's
sorry.
happened before, and it's not
Yes.
just Bob Woodward.
Yeah,
It's a
no.
lot of people. Think about how many people in that administration said nothing until they got their post Trump administration gigs lined up, right? Brian,
Well, look, all I can tell you is this: I'm trying to remain calm.
don't. But why?
But why?
You know why? Because we need to pace ourselves. That's why.
We still got a lot more, brick to travel over. Look, bottom line is Donald Trump is a traitor. Elon Musk is a traitor. Tucker Carlson is a traitor. All of those people who align themselves with that particular movement are traitors to the very ideals upon which this republic was founded. And Bob Woodward just wanted to sell a goddamn book.
Damn book.
And a goddamn, if you really care, I have never held on to a story like that. I bust the story because it needs to be out there when you find it out. You need, for the love of God, if you're a reporter, quit worrying about your fucking pocketbook and do your fucking job. I am so pissed as hell. I watch Bob Woodward diss young reporters at conferences and walk in, preach, and walk out and want people to sign his book, and he disses them. Screw that nonsense. It's not about writing books. You have a responsibility to the republic. I'll end up on this. There was a great movie by Humphrey Bogart in 1952 called Deadline USA. And he said, being a newspaper man doesn't pay the best, but it's the best profession. And a profession is someone that does service for the public. God damn it. Whatever. I get chills watching that today. It's what I was brought up with. And
Brian?
Earlier, what I was talking about was, it's our fault that they come out with the term. They come out with the term
breathe. We got to go. But Danielle, you get the last.
Go. I just want to say the only two I've ever seen: Helen Thomas and Sam Donaldson. Who
cool.
Did
Danielle, you get the
I'll take my
last word today because I'm pretending I'm Lawrence O'Donnell.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Oh, very good. My last word is that, you know, we should all be exasperated. We should all be disgusted, and we have to take that energy over the next 27 days, and we have to do everything and everything and anything that we can, whether that is to donate, whether that is to knock on doors, whether that is to text, whether that is to have the hard conversations with your family members, your friends, and your colleagues. Like, there is so much on the line here. And what Brian has just laid out is that, you know, people like Bob Woodward and others only give a damn about themselves and their own fucking grift and enriching themselves at the expense of the rest of us. So there has to be more of us that care about the collective, right? And that want to do right and do good. Because that's the only way that we're going to persevere through this. And to Waj's point, like the rebuild, if we are able to get a 4-year lease on democracy, the rebuild is going to be something that is extraordinary after the 8 years of Hurricane Donald Trump.
Yeah, and you know, Republican Party. We've got to go, but I just want to say, if you are in the path of this hurricane, please get to safety immediately, and know that there are people on the ground there to help you who are risking their lives to do so. Trust in them. Listen to them. They are there for you, because this is what happens when government works. The government is us. Okay. So please be safe, everybody. And I hope it's not as bad as it may be. Thank you to everybody who commented today, who joined us, to our great moderators. Mercedes, if you're listening, have an amazing vacation. I cannot believe you're on vacation. What is a vacation? So Danielle, Waj, Brian, Norm, thank you so much. And we will see you. I don't know what date it is. We'll see you soon. Yeah, we'll see you Thursday. Take care, everybody. Bye.